Have you been looking for your keys to success? You have found the best place to start. We will hear from professionals on different keys to success in building huge careers in and outside the mortgage industry. These conversations that each person will share their experience will allow you to hear nuggets on finding your keys to success. I'm your host, SueMeitner, so let's get started and grab your keys. Hi everyone, welcome to Grab Your Keys. It is a great day today. I have Todd Bookspan, from the founder of Win by Noon, the founder of Win by Noon. And I love Win by Noon because all you do is all the hard things before it gets to noon, and you have a great strategy on that. And I think it's amazing. I've watched you, and we've been friends for decades, I think, right now. So welcome to Grab Your Keys, Todd.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It is great. So give us a quick snapshot of Win by Noon and all the great things in the mortgage community that you're working on.
Gosh, well, I don't know that we have enough time for all.
I don't think we have enough time for that, but we'll try.
I'm working on. But what I find is, I find a lot of people are a bit like me, and they have a great to-do list in the morning. And then you get to the end of the day and you've been busy reacting and responding to text messages, phone calls, people who pop in your office. If you work in an office, if you work at home, the laundry buzzer buzzes. And all of a sudden you get to the end of the day, and although you had great intentions, you realize that some of your top priorities didn't actually get accomplished. And that was me, right? I was doing mortgages, and I was doing a lot of mortgages, over 400 a year. So it was a pretty good number. It just wasn't the number that I believed I could achieve, right? I felt like I wasn't reaching my potential. And I just did this silly little thing. I blocked my calendar from 8:30 to 11:30 every day. I had an assistant, I had two processors, I had a pre-underwriter, I had a business partner, I had a business development manager, and I worked with my wife. And what they did was they scheduled things on my calendar when it was convenient for them or the people they wanted me to meet with, not when it was the best for me. And what I found is that like most people, 80% of people are early morning or mid-morning people, 20% of people are afternoon and nighttime people. And I'll even challenge those people that they need to accomplish more in the morning. But what I realized is that my most productive hours were busy responding to other people's priorities and not my own. And so just by making that little change of blocking my calendar and making sure that I was committed to the activities that I knew were successful. I don't think there's anyone listening to this who doesn't know what activities they should do to be successful. But all of a sudden, I did those activities. I was already doing them. I was just doing them inconsistently. And so really what I did was I just reframed my priorities and made doing the things I knew I had to do my priority. And by doing that in a flat market, interest rates didn't drop, didn't land a big new builder account or anything crazy like that. I was just doing the things that I did, but doing them every day and consistently. And I grew my business almost 45% a year, closed over 550 loans, hit my goal. I wanted to be a $100 million producer. I closed over almost $115 million. And it was just that one little change and a commitment to that change to make sure that I executed on it, and working what I call my ideal week. So I had certain activities I did every day and certain activities I did on target days, probably what you do and what, most successful loan officers do. I just was really pig-headed and committed to it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Before the 8:30, here's my question. Before the 8:30, do you have a routine that sets yourself up to win prior to you killing it between 8:30 and 11?
Absolutely. I'm like a lot of people, right? I'm a nutrition, biohacking, I want to live a long time kind of person. And I've been that way for a long time. And, so the 8:30 at that time was because I dropped my youngest daughter, Giselle, at school, and Giselle struggles with really severe OCD, and so she never wanted to go to school at 8:25 or 8:27 or 8:28. We literally waited till 8:29 hit, and then at 8:30 the door closed and she snuck into it, and off we went. So there was no mystery to the 8:30 time. So whatever that time is for you, where you can put everything else behind. But back then I was one of the serious 4 a.m. people. I woke up at 4 o'clock, and I did my most important work, right? I did my on time then. My brain was good. Everyone else was asleep. I was drinking my coffee. Today it's a little different. Today I'm a believer in my sleep. So I actually wake up most days, unless I'm trying to catch a flight or I'm speaking at an event, without an alarm. But it's still pretty early. I woke up at 5:30 this morning, and then I did my normal routine. quick 10-minute meditation. I did some stretching. I drank my coffee, chatted with my wife, pet my dogs, took them for a quick spin around the block, took a short run, and then jumped into my webinars on Zoom that I do in the mortgage space on Fridays, and that was a lot of fun. So those are kind of the normal things that I do in the morning. And then what I've also found recently is I'm really down the deep rabbit hole of AI, like a lot of people are. I kind of waited till some of the technology changed where I think I can actually use it to make a difference in my business and life. And so I'm also typically most mornings doing 30 to 60 minutes, just really trying to think with AI as my partner and in planning on things, mainly my personal financial stuff that I'm working on, but also some stuff in business.
You brought up AI. How important do you think AI is in the environment right now?
I mean, I'd be a fool if I didn't say it was really important,
Yeah.
right? And what I see though is that a lot of people are still just using it like Google, right? I mean, to me, that's it's kind of weird. I mean, the younger generation, if I say I'm using AI in front of my kids, I have to be really careful, right? They're in their 20s and they think that, I'm ruining the world and the environment by doing it. And so I try to use it only when I think it's going to make a difference. But I do think that people who use AI will continue to thrive, and those who suffer will probably get beat out by people who do. What do you think about it?
Right. You have your Fridays at noon. You probably just had one with Dave. How important do you think that community is for you and the people who listen to that? I think it's important. So I love
Well,
listening.
I love that you said that because I don't think it's how important I think it is. I do it because I'm super
Others
passionate
think
about
it
it.
is, right?
Right. You know what I mean? Like, so, Dave and I have done it for more than a decade now.
I know. It's so
We're working on
fun.
it. And it's kind of fun because we just took over about 6 weeks ago and it's now officially kind of rebranded it. So it used to be the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind call on Fridays because Win by Noon didn't exist when we started it. And it was just he handed the torch over, and we've rebranded it as the Loan Officer Mastermind, powered by Win by Noon. And so I get to be the leader, so that's kind of fun. But really, I mean, I think if anyone's looking for somewhere to learn about strategies on being more productive from not just loan officers, we have a really good mix. So far we've kind of had a mix of, maybe 50% loan officers and then 40% coaches, 10% real estate agents. So we're going to continue to bring people on that'll continue to make a difference. So I hope it's important to other people because in the end we have fun doing it, but it's only as good as the people who listen to it and share it with others.
Yeah, I love when you let me join in with you all. It's fun, and I always try to get on to see what's going on in the industry and who you have on. I think it's something that is great for our mortgage community, and obviously it's been going on for a decade now. It's super important. What do you feel your 3 keys to success have been?
But it's kind of interesting. I think one is my curiosity, and that's continued to grow. I feel like that was where I lacked when I first got into business. I guess I should say I lacked totally. I was really good at reading. I paid for coaching, and I really was a student of learning, but I lacked curiosity in the conversations I had with people because I showed up with more confidence than I probably should have. And so curiosity, I think, is such an important feature that people miss out on.
So curiosity is one, which I love. I love that book. I love the book Curious George. So I've read it to my kids all the time. So and a curiosity isn't what killed the cat. So but what are the other two? Do you think?
I think having standards, right? I realized early on that you kind of have to have a minimum standard, and then as people set stretch goals, like I also try to have something else that I want to do. So even now, even though I don't produce in the mortgage space like other people do, I still have a team that's out there. I'm still really connected to what's going on in the industry. I'm doing small group coaching and other stuff, so I feel like I can stay relevant. But what I find when I talk to people is they don't really have a standard. I'm like, well, how many people are you going to talk to this week? And they're like, as many as call me or as many as answer the phone. And so I've been really committed to having a standard of 50 quality conversations in a week still with real estate agents, even though I'm not in the day to day, just from a business development and a learning perspective. And then but I got a stretch now where it's not really even a stretch. I mean, then my real goal, my target is is 60, minimum standard of 50, and I would love to talk to 100 a week. It's just not my priority, so probably not what I'll do.
Right. And how important do you think it is to have these written down and just not in your head?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's why the part of Win by Noon is a written planner, right? I feel like for me, I think it's twofold. I think that most people know in their head what it is, but if you haven't really written it down, I mean, I feel like when you have a business plan or you write a business vision or even more importantly, a life plan, that when it's written, that's kind of your North Star. You know where you're going. And, yeah, best practice is to review those frequently. But even on the times where I didn't review them frequently, the fact that I'd written it down and reviewed it multiple times, it still drew me that direction, right? It still forced me to go that direction. And so I also think you need to look at it on a daily basis. So literally, I put it down. I've got my planner. It's kind of a mess, but that's all right. But in my planner, I write down what my commitments are so that I'm sitting there staring at it in the day. And then I'm also not the person that if I don't hit it yesterday, I'm going to actually not just do my commitment for today, but I'm going to add in yesterday's shortfall. Even if the day before that I crushed it and went way above it, I'm just always going to push myself a little bit further, where I think oftentimes people are okay coasting.
Yeah. So curiosity, standards, third one?
I would say presence. Again, for a long time, especially think in a world where, we all have these little things in our pockets that are called cell phones that, are little mini computers and have lots of distractions on it and lots of things that buzz and beep. And I know you have all your stuff turned off and, from listening to conversations that you've had here on your podcast. But I feel like that's a superpower right now. I think that especially as we get in a world where AI is going to be so good in the future that you're not going to know when you're watching a video if it's a real person or a fake person. You're going to get phone calls from people that you think are real people, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was AI. And so I think that in real life, I keep hearing IRL. In real life is gonna matter. I think that's going to come back. But I think more importantly, it's, can you be present? I was at a business networking event last night, and I was looking around. There's 30 professionals there. There were some, really impressive people there. A couple people from from Meta, a couple of people who work for SpaceX. There were a lot of entrepreneurs, real estate entrepreneurs.
That's
And it was
fun.
interesting to watch around that I didn't see cell phones up. Where, I would go to an event with realtors and mortgage people, no offense to our industry, but, they're all holding their phones, checking text messages, and they just can't really unplug and be present. And I was sort of surprised afterwards, because it was the first event where I went to live with this group, that everyone was present, and it was just really great conversations.
Yeah, that's so important. The presence and the listening. They
Yeah.
go hand in hand. And I think that that's vital, especially for the loan officer today, or really anybody who's talking to and developing relationships. I was just speaking with a borrower, and they were buying a house for their son. And they didn't say they were buying a house for their son. They said they were buying an investment property. And I said, oh, why are you buying an investment property? The curiosity. And they said, oh, we're buying it for our son. He's 35 years old. That's great. And he has $35,000 that they're going to put into this. And I said, and in my head, I'm calculating, they're buying a $500,000 house, $35,000. Like, where's the extra money coming from? And I said, are you planning to put 20% down? And they said, well, that's what we have to do with an investment property. And we went through the whole thing. And I said, does your son have any sort of disabilities or anything? I just am listening to what you're saying, and you don't need to tell me, obviously, if it's not comfortable for you. And they said, oh, our child has autism. And then I knew that I could put him into a program with 5% down, where the parents can buy the house, and it's not an investment property. It's considered a primary residence. But if I wasn't present and I had missed some of that, and I just thought they were buying an investment property for no reason, and I didn't have the curiosity and the presence to ask those questions, I would have put them in a 20% down product, and they wouldn't have had enough money, and they would have been mad.
Well, and even if they had enough money, I mean, you got them a better interest rate. You allowed their other asset to grow outside of the home equity, and I mean, that's just a game changer.
Total game changer, because the listening is so funny, because one of their family members is a mortgage person, didn't come up with the idea and knew all the situations. So the presence, so we have curiosity, standards, presence, and all of that does filter into Win by Noon too, because you're really putting in your planner. Couldn't find that word in my brain for a second. In the planner, exactly what you need to do to win by noon. And it just maps it all out.
Well, I mean, again, it's not rocket science, right? I mean, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're in insurance, whether you're a loan officer, whether you're in some other form of sales, we've got versions for all of those. I mean, you have to call leads, you have to talk to people, you have to meet with people, but it'd be kind of good to know what your conversion rates are by looking at that. And then, that's the activity side of it. And then you've got the result side, right? Which are the things you want, leads, whether it's signed buyer agreements, whether it's an application, and then obviously closed transactions. I think most people just focus on the goal, the closed, and where you make the money, and they forget that you actually have to have the activity first in order to get there. And so that was, again, it's not a blinding flash of the obvious, well, but it is. I mean, most people just really aren't thinking through the day to day of what they need to do to take action.
And it's really a reverse engineering. How much money do you want to make? How many loans do you have to do? And what do you have to break it down to do it? And then you pretty much times it by 4, and that's who you have, and divide it by 5, and that's who you have to talk to. So you just have to reverse. Did I say that too fast? You just have to reverse.
I'm writing it down. Times it by 4 and divide it by 5.
Yeah, that's it. You had said that you went to a networking event to developing relationships in the world that we live in today with AI and with everybody else. How do you believe relationships or networking really impacts the growth that you have?
I mean, I think it's so important. I mean, look at you. You just said you're helping a client who was referred to you. So that's from a relationship that you have who has a family member who's in the business that you're in. And I got to imagine if the average person, granted, we all have people in our family we don't like. Thankfully, I like everyone in my family, but some people do. And I would want to see someone in my family succeed. And if there's money to be made in a transaction, I would actually want one of my family members to make it, not a stranger that's referred by someone else. And so that tells me that, that's a perfect example of how relationships, really matter. And I think what happens is that we sort of forget that we've got to put ourselves in the path of opportunity. So when it comes to business, I'm a big believer that if you're trying to grow whatever it is you need to get there, whoever, typically in our world of loan officers, that's referral partners, you got to figure out, how do I get in the real world to run into them? So then I can actually follow up with them and say, hey, remember me, we met, and then be able to go ahead and add value to their lives and hopefully add enough value that they want to do business with me. And I find that, most people sit around, like cold calling, it works, but I hate cold calling. I never want to do that, right? I could certainly call someone and ask for an introduction and call someone. That's harder. But if I can actually see them face to face, I literally have gotten 2 texts this morning from people that I met last night who are interested in real estate, that I've already reached out to the real estate agents that I know in the areas they're looking to say, hey, are you open-minded to me connecting you with a client? And of course, they're like,
amazing.
Why are you even asking me, Todd? And that wasn't, I didn't go there to get business. I actually went there because I moved and I want to meet people, right? And I can't sit in my house and hope to meet people. I got to put myself out there. So it's a different kind of goal, but I'm trying to surround myself with like-minded people. I could probably go sit at a coffee shop and meet people who have time to sit and drink coffee or work. It's probably not going to happen. But if I go to an event where people are meeting other people, wearing name tags, shaking hands, now I've got people that I can follow up with and build relationships.
Love that. I absolutely love that. What are you seeing in the industry right now that you feel people should be paying attention to?
Well, again, let's go back to your AI question. I think you're foolish not to pay attention to it, but what I'm seeing that's really surprising is I'm seeing a lot of loan officers spending time trying to create AI things to do the business for them instead of just doing the business. And so one is, that's kind of a pulse check. Make sure that pay attention to that stuff. You probably work for a great company and your company's probably working on this for you. And I would just say, be patient, right? Listen around and be patient, because in the end, I think the real trend is to do a better job with the leads that you have. We recently did an interview with Justin Padron. I don't know if you know Justin, he's out of Texas. And he pointed out the fact that, the last 2 years he's had less leads, but closed more loans because he has a higher conversion rate. So he's focusing on the right things, which is actually the conversations with his clients, right? The things that we're talking about, what you just did with your client to help save him money. And they're sticking to him more and he's converting more of those transactions. So I think the biggest trend is to look at your conversion. I mean, don't compare yourself to Sue or Justin or anyone else out there. Compare yourself to you last week, last month, last year. You already said it. You got to know your numbers. And so I think that that's the biggest thing, that we know that all the top producers do it. And so therefore we wonder, why don't the people who want to be top producers do it too?
Yeah, it's actually amazing to look at the top producers, and you have them all on your Win by Noon, or what are you calling it now? The
We
The
Loan
Loan
Officer
Mastermind
Mastermind. It's on
by Win by.
it is on the Win by Noon channel of YouTube, and now you can find it on all the podcast places too. We finally, we gave in after 10 years, and we're finally doing what people want. You also have to listen to people that, right? And everyone's like, well, can't you just put this onto the podcast world? So we are officially in Spotify and
I
Apple Podcast.
actually love that because I listen to podcasts like as I'm going to sleep, which is probably not the right thing to do, and
Need
as I blow
intervention.
dry my hair. So I have different podcast times so that I can fit all my podcast time in so I can win by noon so that I can get out of the house. That is part of my routine. But I love that. Where did you move to?
Venice Beach, California.
Oh, fun.
Quietly have been here for a year, and people are finally just starting to catch on. They see my Instagram stories, and there's beach in the background, and palm trees. We had those in Arizona too, but just they look a little different over here. And so we were blessed recently with a grandson, and so we kind of moved out here in anticipation of my daughter and son-in-law having a child.
Well, that is like the true blessings in our world is having children and having greatness with family, because then you really get to share curiosity, standards, and being present. So not being on that cell phone is super important in really, building that most important thing of having a family unit. Because I think the happier you are with your family, the happier that shows in relationships and helping others. So I think it all goes together. It's taken me a
I think
long time to figure it all out, but I do agree with that.
Well, it took me a long time to figure it all out too, and that's why when it goes back to why do we all what you're doing here with me, like I love that you're giving back because I think we give back because we want to help shortcut it for the people who are coming behind us, because I feel like that's what I wish I would have seen more of. But YouTube didn't exist when I was starting out. And even though I would go to seminars when they came to town or fly somewhere and have a coach, you can't see it all like you can now. So I do think there's so much opportunity to learn from others. How are you scripting that so that you don't have to be like on demand? Someone calls you, you're like the Pop Tart that pops out of the toaster, like so that you can do your family time. Do you have a good way you set up that conversation with clients and partners so that they know you're, yes, I'm here to serve you, but hey, you know what? I have this time that's actually
Yeah,
my own time I want to
I'm really
control.
bad at that. So I've been bad at that, but I've gotten better at it with my children going to college. When they came home, that was like time that I'd be like, my daughter's home from college, my son's here, I will, get back to you as soon as I can. This is what we're doing. I think that having that communication of texting the person and saying, can I call you in an hour? Can I call you in 4 hours? Can I call you on Monday at 10 o'clock? Making it so that they know what you're doing has been wonderful for me to balance it out. But it's been a learning process. I'm going on vacation in a week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going on vacation for a week. I'm going to try to really be present. I'm going to try not to be on my cell phone. But even with having that new baby and everything else, that you do want that family time. And it's important because you can never get it back.
Yeah, I think I always learned it the hard way, right? I went from the person who was, I mean, again, in the financial crisis, right? I mean, business dried up, and you kind of get desperate, and you're like sitting there reading a book to your kids, and you're like, oh my gosh, this realtor's calling, I better answer the phone. And so I was proud of myself during that time, because I made a rule, and for accountability, I told everyone this was the rule: I'm not going to talk business on the cell phone in the house. And it wasn't
Wow,
like I would
that's a
grab a
lot.
call and sprint out the door. I just said, if I'm at home with you guys and present, like I'm not going to do that. And there was times where I said, hey, today's a day where I might get some calls and I would have to ask for permission. But as a general rule, I didn't answer calls during dinner and all the other places. I'm embarrassed now to say that I answered calls. And so I did that, and I was really successful with not talking on the phone when I got home. Finished up the last call in the driveway, went in, and I was unplugged. And then I get in the car one day with my daughter Emmeline, my middle daughter, and what do? I'm checking my voicemails, and I'm on the phone, and we're driving down the street. Like literally, we're just out of our drive, and I can remember her saying, "Dad," in her little cute voice. She's like, "Hey, do you think you could do that not on the phone thing in the car too?" And I was like, "Oh, dagger to the heart, right?" And so sometimes we have to, listen for clues around us. So I love the fact that, yeah, you're just saying, "Hey, can I call you back in a bit? And so, my coaching to people always is let people know what's going on. Hey, I'm going to be doing this with my family. And then don't make assumptions. I think what I found was I always made an assumption that if someone needed a pre-approval, they needed it like in an hour. And instead I got really good at saying, hey, you know what? When are you going to be shopping? And so I'm thinking they're going to shop, this afternoon. Oh, well, I'm not shopping for 2 weeks. I'm like, awesome, great. So it's the under promise, over deliver. Then I could say, great, I'll get this to you by the middle of next week. So we have plenty of time to go through it. And then all of a sudden I look like a hero. I got it to him by the end of the week or the beginning of the following week, but I didn't put pressure on me or my team to move faster than I had to.
Yeah, it's funny. I just put a computer in my house. So both of my kids are out of college.
Congratulations, maybe.
And I just put a computer in my house. And it's so funny that over the time of my children growing up, I subconsciously, besides in COVID, never had a computer in my house. So in hindsight, it was amazing, but it really showed that I knew I was a workaholic. I knew that I would be drawn to the computer. So anytime I had to do anything, I only live 7 minutes from my office. So I would just come into the office and do it. So I would always allot like a Sunday or a couple hours before my week started that I would do everything for anyone who I, had talked to over the weekend. But I must have always known. So I just recently put a computer in the house, and sometimes it doesn't get used, but it's super convenient when I just have to do something really fast and now I don't need. So subconsciously get your computers out of your house. It will make a big difference.
Well, that's kind of like the whole, blinders for humans, right? Horses, if you watch the Kentucky Derby a few weeks ago, they got those blinders on so they're not distracted by anything around them. And I feel like, for me, I have to set up guardrails like that. So I love that you did that. I always had a laptop, right, in a backpack. So it was a way too convenient for me to do that. So I think
even I saw you in Washington, D.C., which was so great at the Modern Mortgage Summit. If anyone hasn't signed up, you definitely always need to sign up for the Modern Mortgage Summit. It's wonderful. The speakers that speak are killer. They're second to none. And but I then went from DC. You had your computer there, by the way. I saw the backpack with the laptop, but I do not travel with a computer at all. So
that's
I went
amazing.
from DC to California to Austin. So I was away for 3 weeks, and I didn't have a laptop at all 3 weeks, and I still got work done. The company still ran, and it was still fine. But sometimes you just gotta not have travel. It's too heavy. So
That's a whole other podcast on how to create systems so you can do that. Because I think there's people who are probably blown away. But I know if I start asking you about that, we're going to go over time.
way over. So
I think that would be a huge value to do a show on that, because that's one of the things that always surprised people. I was the person again on vacation, talking to my team, taking loan applications, driving down the road while, had a headset on while I was talking, while my kids were in the car, and then got to the point where literally I had a separate phone for work, than for my personal, and I could literally leave that at home with a team member turned off, and then my business still went on without me, and then I could be present. I mean, there's a huge difference. So, going back to my idea of being present is think about that. To me, it's just the brain stress. There's actually science that says if you take your cell phone out of your pocket and you stick it on the table while you're eating dinner with people, that it creates a higher level of stress for people than if it's out of sight. And so, it's the whole idea of what's around you, and again, setting up those boundaries for yourself. But I mean, think about it, just a day or half a day where you can actually go and not be reachable, but know that everything is getting taken care of. And, it's easy if someone says, one of the things when I was coaching full time was I mainly coached high achievers trying to grow and scale to get out of the day-to-day of their team, up to a CEO. But I also had my young guns. They were my friends who were CEOs, kind of top producers, all young men, all in their late 20s, early 30s, and they all seemed to be having babies. And I literally thought they'd be the guy, their wife would be on the delivery table, having the baby, and they'll be taking a loan application. So, I had to just teach them basics, like set an out of office that says, hey, I'm out of office until next week, due to having my first baby. Right? I mean, no one's gonna curse at you because you were gone for a week because you had a baby.
Look forward to picture soon. Like literally,
Right.
make it be relational, and then you really win because then you have a connection with them.
Right, because what kind of loser is not going to want to send you a transaction, to your team because you're having a baby? Because they should know that now you need more money than you ever needed before.
Yeah, I love that. So, Todd, we're going to put everything down below of where people can get in touch with you, how they can look you up, how they can get to your YouTube channel, absolutely everything. I love that we were able to get you on here and make time. And I think it's almost win by noon actually because it's not noon there. So, and we're
Yeah, it's only
winning by noon.
11:30. This is
Yeah.
it. I'm winning by noon today, thanks to you. I'm so grateful.
I am so grateful too. So I'm grateful for our friendship, but also that I know you in our mortgage community because you make it a lot better.
You're the
So
best. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. And everyone, like, share, comment, of course. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Grab Your Keys.